Okay, we're on the air. This is the OSRA Daily Scrum for Monday, February 16th, 2015. Here we have Christian, hopefully Gabrielle, and myself. So we have a big agenda for tonight. Let's start with a quick Scrum. No technical discussion. Let's just hear updates from people about what they've been working on and what their plans are. Very quickly, then I guess we can think about doing a retrospective, although the last sprint was very strange. I'm not sure how much we can say about it. And then after that, let's talk about planning our next sprint. And we've lost Gabrielle completely at this point. Now, Gabrielle, can you hear us now?
I think he has some microphone problems.
Yeah, that's okay.
Hello.
Hey.
Oh, hi.
Now it's working.
Yeah, it's working. Hi.
Hi. Igual, was they connected the microphone and the camera. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with a quick Scrum. Go around the room. Christian, why don't you start us off?
Yes. Well, over the weekend, me and Andre paired on homework, on the last homework, and now we finished the course. So, woohoo! Great course.
Excellent.
And strangely, the last homework was extremely simple, like just creating a migration and adding two indices. So I don't know, somebody didn't work on that homework to implement that homework completely, I think. But anyway, good that we finished it, and that's what we did. And for the future plans, I think working on phase 1 tomorrow, if we can start on that.
Right.
And that's about it for now.
Okay, Gabrielle.
By the finish, but I think I read your comment and changed the factory, and that's it. I think I forgot that change. Should be okay. Hey.
Okay, yeah, so we're using sequence now, so hopefully we will avoid those uniqueness validations. And yeah, I think it's ready to go. Excellent. So we got that done. Okay. Let me wrap up the Scrum then by saying that I left a comment that Gabrielle was just talking about, and then I guess over the weekend there's been a bit of a discussion about my pull requests that have to do with service objects, and then I've submitted 3 very tiny pull requests. One is just improving a method in the sponsor class, and then 2 others having to do with the Rails transition, just very simply implementing the instance action items in the 2 views. Basically very minimal PRs, and that's it for me. So we didn't have a client meeting this Sunday because we didn't have anything to say to them. It sounds like they have a few things to say to us, so we'll keep an eye on Google Plus to see if anything comes up. And yeah, I think that's kind of the state of the project for now. Christopher, welcome.
Hi, how's it going?
All right.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
So we are we're doing a Scrum, very quick Scrum, and then our plan is to. I guess we haven't decided yet. Ideally we should have a retrospective about the sprint that is concluding, And then we are going to have a sprint planning meeting for the next sprint. So that's where we're at. Guys, what do you think about the sprint retrospective? The sprint that's just wrapping up, it ended up being 4 weeks long instead of 2 weeks, and there hasn't been that much activity because we lost.
Well, it was at the beginning. It was the first week.
Yeah.
It was full. So.
Yeah. Do you remember what happened in the first week enough to have a retrospective about it?
I think working on Rails, Brian was working on the users, I was working on the sponsor.
Yeah.
And Craig was also doing something, can't remember.
Yeah, he submitted that pull request for optimizing the index views, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's do a quick retrospective then. Let me pull up my trusty Evernote. And let me reshare my entire screen. So this is this is the sprint 10 active. So looking at sprint 9 retrospective, our actions were this. So begin implementing UI from Christopher's wireframe. That was actually one of the actions for sprint 10, and we have certainly made some progress on that. So all done. Finish user and sponsor. They're not quite finished yet, I think, but they're very close. Let's have a look at the status of those.
The sponsor show view. In the active admin, it also shows the sponsorships related to that sponsor. Remember, at the bottom of the show view, it shows a list. Yeah. So I didn't implement that because I thought it should be a different task. So we should create a task for that.
Right. Okay, let's actually, lest we forget, let's do that right now. So display, was it active and inactive sponsorships on
sponsor show.
Sponsor show. Okay. And
hey, how are you? Sorry, I
okay. So that is still outstanding, and then for the user, we have two things in code review still. Brian's has been there for a while. Mine is the one that I did today, and then there's this little task that's been hanging for a while about setting asterisks on fields that are required that Robbie worked on, and we haven't really made any progress on that yet. There's a pull request that is sitting, but we're supposed to do a discussion, but that actually never happened. So I guess that's just our collective fault for not making any progress. But anyway, so this is, I think we can call this almost done. Although our idea was to have Modusam act as a product owner to accept all these stories, and now that he's disappeared, I'm not sure where we're gonna, or how we're going to proceed, but anyway. Plan phase 1 development. So that's done. We had a client meeting to discuss this exact thing. We have our priorities and a list of tasks. And set up team repository of ideas, links, etc. And we talked about Confluence. Confluence is now up and we're using it, sort of. So we can call that a success. Okay. So let's try to quickly do the good, the bad, strategies and actions. So Christian, you were here for the entire sprint. I missed the first 2 weeks of it, so you're probably in the best position of any of us to talk about what was good and bad in sprint 10. You want to start us off?
Well, of course, the bad is that our team just vanished, half of the team.
Yeah, we've literally lost
Yeah.
half
So we have a low velocity now.
of the team. Yeah.
Well, the good news, rest of the other half of the team remained.
Yeah, we haven't lost everybody, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, some of those people are, I mean, Craig and Robbie hopefully will come back at least at half strength. At some point, Brian is hoping to do some work on on weekends for OSRA.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully he'll manage to do that.
Yeah.
Andre and Motosema, I guess I don't know anything about what they're up to.
Yeah, Andre is super busy. That doesn't have time for almost anything.
Yeah. Okay. I guess the other bad thing, and I think this always falls into the bad category, is that the sprint got extended.
Oh yeah.
And this was a different situation than the last time we extended our sprint. Last time we were hoping to finish some stories up, and that just dragged on. This time it got extended because nothing was happening, essentially. But I don't know. It never feels like a good thing when we don't keep on schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, in fact, the good thing is also that we have Gabrielle has joined the team.
True.
During the sprint, so that's a bonus.
What about the production, the application in the production?
The application in production seems to be working. We haven't had any bug reports so far. So yeah.
Oh, that's the good, not the bad.
Oh yeah, sorry. Well, in production with live data. Well, I guess the bad, sort of the obvious thing, is that haven't made much progress. Okay. Anything else? Christian or Gabrielle, do you have anything to add to this list?
Can't think of anything else.
Okay. Yeah, I guess not much happened, so not much to talk about, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's think about the strategies then for the upcoming sprint. Now, we've talked about phase one with the client. We have a list of tasks for phase one, and we have they're prioritized. So if we focus on phase one, we know exactly what we need to do. But of course, the other thing that is still very much something that we need to keep paying attention to is Rails, the transition away from ActiveAdmin. And so I think one of the strategies that we need to talk about is how much attention are we going to devote to implementing new features in ActiveAdmin, and how much.
I think even more important is fixing these bugs that the client is saying, or we'll see when we get details.
I'll put this under actions because that's pretty specific. So there is a sponsor email validation bug and unknown orphan import. Oh, well, I guess we don't even know what it is.
Mm-hmm. So then, should we go with phase one, or should we go with Rails as priority?
Well, I had a conversation with Brian this morning on Slack, and we talked about whether our strategy with Rails should have been different, and we should have maybe transitioned or tried to transition to Rails much faster than we have been doing. Because the valid point that he makes is that, of course, if we implement new features right now in Active Admin, we get to re-implement them all.
Yeah, exactly. And
Rails.
we will never finish.
Yeah, we're just going to keep playing catch up with the Rails. Okay, so if Gabrielle, Christopher, feel free to speak up, please. Christopher, just maybe to give you a bit of a background on this, although you know some of the details. Our application was originally built using the gem Active Admin, and that really covered large portions of its architecture. But then we started running into problems with it where we were fighting against the gem rather than working with it, and so the decision was made to remove that gem from the application and basically implement all of its functionality in pure Rails. And because it was such a key component of the application, that switch to Rails is a major undertaking that we've been working on for over a month at this point, and it's maybe optimistically halfway finished. And right now we're at a point where we could start development on phase one, so the next phase, next batch of fresh features. But of course the problem is that if the Rails functionality isn't finished, then we would implement everything still in Active Admin, and then we would have to re-implement it in Rails. Okay. And so the question is, do we focus on Rails now and tell the client to maybe wait a little bit for us to deliver those phase one features?
Well, the question is, if we focus only on Rails the next sprint, can we finish it in one sprint, what remains?
Well, unfortunately, I would say that smart money says no, because we've been working on it at full strength with the team for at least 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm not even sure that we got halfway through.
Yeah, we have the Orphan, which is big.
And now we're facing some of the challenges with Orphan, and then with the sponsorship, which is it has an unusual controller, and and its views actually are a bit different. They're just not standard CRUD views that you get, and so we need to get through that with much reduced strength. So I would say finishing Rails in the next sprint to the point where we can deliver it a stable implementation to the client is not realistic.
Yeah. Then I don't know what to say.
Mike, what's the strategy for porting over features from Active Admin to the new application?
The strategy has been to go stepwise and slow, I guess. We started with this, so we need to re-implement essentially all the controllers and the views. Yeah. The models remain unchanged. And so we started with the controllers and the views that were the simplest for the models that didn't have that many attributes or that much logic associated with them. And we're slowly moving towards more complicated things. So some of the stuff that we need to do is basic CRUD. So there isn't a lot of, it's not particularly challenging, just repetitive. But then some of the things will be, we would need to think about the architecture before we actually write some code.
What do you say, Nick? What do you prefer?
Well, again, I haven't thought about it since the morning today. I'm thinking that the stories for phase one, what the client has requested, can be broadly divided into two categories. There are a few kind of enhancements to existing functionality, and there are brand new features. And the enhancements to existing functionality are the kinds of things that they are using on a daily basis. These enhancements would make their lives easier immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And so one option would be to implement those, but not to implement any brand new features until Rails is ready.
Mm-hmm.
So we make the application easier to use in the meantime, but all of that new stuff with orphan cards and notification center that they're requesting, that waits until Rails is ready to take over from ActiveAdmin.
You mean the notification for the orphan that gets to 18 years old?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Let me see. I'll try to, so that we know what everybody knows what we're talking about. Actually discuss the specific tasks that we have listed for phase one. I guess we're now kind of transitioning over to sprint planning. Atlassian stuff is slow, isn't it?
Yeah, very slow.
I think this is the one. Right. So the first 4 items are enhancements. So option 2, when you create a sponsor, not just save this sponsor record and be taken to the show page, but immediately to be taken to the next new sponsor view. I guess in those cases where they're entering many sponsor records one after the other. This one, names should not allow special characters. We still don't have a clarification from the client what exactly they mean by that. But hopefully that's forthcoming. A simple validation that start dates for sponsorships or sponsors should not allow dates prior to establishment of the OSRA organization. Fairly straightforward. And finally, the thing that Christian and I were discussing before the Scrum, this email format validation for sponsor. So these would be the enhancements, and then everything that follows are brand new features. So,
is it a question of how to keep the client happy while this transition's occurring?
Yeah.
Like if it's not that much effort to do numbers 1 through 4, then, but it keeps the client under the impression that things are still moving.
Yeah, and like I said, I think these enhancements would actually make their lives easier immediately, so they would appreciate it, maybe even more than having those new features implemented. So it sounds like a workable solution. And we obviously can and probably should be completely transparent with the client. We can tell them that, first of all, they should be informed that our team strength is much reduced. And we can also tell them that we're doing some major changes sort of under the hood and might not be able to deliver any new features for some time, but I don't expect that they will be too unhappy about that. So does that sound as a strategy then?
Yeah, great. Let's do that.
So let's say keep pushing Rails.
So I'm new. You might want to consider assigning me some of those crap tasks, and then I can get familiar with the code base that way.
Yeah, so part of this transition, like I said, is just writing basic CRUD operations, like all the new create, edit, update actions. So, and we already have several controllers switched over to Rails, so the sort of the pattern is established. Should be fairly easy to follow. And then the second strategy is to implement the enhancements requested by client for phase 1. So it's items 1 through 4. Okay. Any other strategies or specific actions?
About the from phase 1, the number 10, I think, the last one, about the notification.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that, how to implement it, and I think it's better if we implement it without background workers. And every time the page it's refreshed, we keep a method on the model that checks that there is an orphan or more than one orphans that are 18 years old, and also stores the date, the today date. And if the next request comes in, it sees that the date is stored already for today, then it doesn't do the check again. So this way we only check it once a day.
So when would this method run?
Well, it will run every time the notification needs to show. So I think on every page. But it will not do any processing, because it will just check if date.today is stored or not inside the method. And if it's stored, it will just return if they are orphans or nothing.
But that means that the first time, so let's say if it runs, well...
Yeah, the first time on that day it will do the checking.
Yeah,
and
so
after that it will not do it again, because it stores the day, and until the day changes, it will not do it again. So the only thing that remains is to see if, I don't know, if for that orphan is deleted, then we should also delete a notification for that orphan.
Well, but I don't think you can get away with running the method just once, because the first thing you do is you check. So, for example, if you go to either this notification center or if you go to the orphan index view, for example, then as part of rendering that view, the first time you do it, it iterates through all the orphan records and checks if their birthdays, if their ages are still valid.
Yeah.
And then every other time you go to the index page, it checks whether the date field has been set. So it sounds like every single time you go to the index view, it will iterate over every single orphan record. And
well, 99% of the time it will just check the date. And that will be just an if, which is very fast. And then we can store the notifications in a class variable, so it's accessed by all requests, right?
Yeah, it still sounds like, I don't know, I suspect that
or of course I can create a service like you did and separate the logic.
Yeah.
Oh, if you want, I can give it a try to just.
Yeah, I'm concerned about if it's not a background job, because with a background job, we would schedule it to run once every 24 hours, for example.
Mm-hmm.
At I don't know 3 a.m. local time, so that it doesn't interfere with anything. And at that point, it pulls up. It's free to pull up every record from the database and check it. But if you're doing that live on every page render, and you have, potentially up to 2,000 records.
Well, no, Nick, you didn't understand me. The parsing the entire orphan table will happen only on login, on first time that day.
Okay.
So, and the rest of the request on that day will just return the same notification. Will not do the database again.
So basically, you
Yeah,
visit the application for the first time, and at that point, it runs through all the records, and then it creates. Let's say we have a notification class,
yeah.
so it instantiates an object, notification object, and says that this notification object was created today.
Mm-hmm.
And then on each subsequent render, if it detects that there is already a notification that was created today,
yeah,
it doesn't do it again.
Yeah, it's exactly as caching that notification for 24 hours.
Okay. Off the top of my head, I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm kind of dubious about the idea of the first time that day that somebody visits the application, they have to sit and wait for all the records to be scanned.
Yeah, unless I put it in a background process. Every time the first time the user logs in, and it starts that background process, and when it will finish, it will show up eventually in the future request.
Yeah.
So it will not interfere with the flow of the application.
Okay. You know what? I'm very interested to see all these ideas in code and then to see how they perform.
Yeah, it's easier. The only thing remains after the notification. So we have a few orphans that just turned 18.
Mm-hmm.
What will the user do? What our client do? Does he want to delete this orphan?
Yeah, that's a very good question too, and especially in cases where those orphans might be actively sponsored.
Yeah.
How they want to proceed. I think that's probably something that will be the follow-up to this story. So we begin by implementing this notification system.
Mm-hmm. Because this will affect the notification, right? So if the user wants to just terminate all the sponsorships, then we should also ensure the notification doesn't appear anymore, right? Or I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what exactly, what their intent is, whether with notifications, if they want like literally a little pop-up that says something, if they want a flash message, or if they want a separate screen, like we have this dashboard right now,
mm-hmm.
that you have to specifically go there to see the messages. I think we'll have to have a lot of discussion with the client, I think, when it comes to actually implementing this.
Yeah, because this is also this problem also comes if we use background workers. We have to
yeah, either way for sure.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what they want to do, if they want those records to be marked somehow or frozen, or
mm-hmm.
I'm assuming they don't want them to be automatically deleted, but they probably also want to make sure that they don't create a sponsorship, for example, for one of those.
We just need to know when to stop showing the notification for those orphans.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can start on the story whenever we get around to it by doing the logic for this task, for this job.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can decide whether it's going to be a real-time job or a background job, and also what to do with notifications and what to do with
Also,
those records.
I'm not experienced with this, but Heroku, the free Heroku account that we're using, is it allowing background jobs? I don't know.
I am almost certain that it does,
Uh-huh.
but I'm not promising anything.
Okay.
So, yeah, something else that we need to research.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So to go back to our retrospective, we have, so our overall strategy is to keep pushing transition to Rails, and in the meantime to keep enhancing the existing functionality for the client, but not implement anything new. And we should probably discuss that at the next client meeting. Let them know that this is what we would like our strategy to be, and to see if they're okay with it. And then, yeah, the actions, I guess, the specific things are here, plus whatever comes out of the strategies that we decided. So is there anything else to talk about in the retrospective?
We have previous actions and future actions, right?
Yeah,
We
these
have,
are actions from, I guess, from last retrospective. And these are actions for next. Okay. So I will post this in our Confluence, I suppose, and people are free to comment, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And now let's go to our Jira, and let's complete this sprint. And let's see if I remember how to do all this fun stuff. So.
Yeah, Pavel is in Sydney now.
3 issues are done, 4 incomplete issues, and 2 partially complete issues. Okay. Not fantastic, but okay. Huh. We can actually create retrospective pages here, right here in Jira.
Is that new?
I think so. Some of their interface has changed noticeably, so yeah, it must be.
Cool.
Okay. Well, we only had one point story, and we finished it. But all the other chores and tasks that didn't have any points assigned, mixed success, let's say. Okay. Now, create sprint. So this is sprint 11. Does anybody have an inspiring title?
More Rails than phase 1.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't think of anything, I don't know, motivating. So yeah, more Rails and start. Too long. Phase 1.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go through. Yeah, I guess that's the problem now. We have for partner, what we need is a product owner who would look at everything and either accept or reject it. For user, we're almost ready for that as well, and for sponsor, we're almost ready for that as well. So, Christopher, by the way, if you're interested, since you're coming a bit from the outside, if you're interested in this kind of a job at all, so we've converted 3 controllers and 3 sets of views now from ActiveAdmin to Rails.
Okay.
And we would like to have somebody to evaluate the entirety of that functionality and either accept it or reject it. And ideally, maybe somebody who didn't work on that code. We were hoping to use Modism, but he's disappeared.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, once those tasks are complete, we can chat about that and see how we can do it.
Okay.
Okay, this is the task that Gabrielle is working on, and this is basically...
One question.
Yeah.
Create Rails controller and views for partner. Wasn't that already done?
That's the problem. It's done, but it's in the resolved category, but it's not in
It's the task that remained. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So we
Yeah.
basically, as soon as it's officially accepted, then it's done. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Sorry. Yeah.
Why is this not done?
Is there still a subtask?
There aren't any subtasks. Yeah, this definitely should be in the done category, no? Okay. Okay. Now, let's send this to the bottom of the backlog because we're waiting. This. I think we're waiting for that as well. This we can move over here. So that's a new feature, that's a new feature, that's a new feature, that's a new feature for phase 1. Names should not allow special characters. That is going into the sprint. Adult orphan display. Okay, so this is part of the sprint as well. What else do we have? I've forgotten. Option to save and create another. That's already in the sprint. Names not allow special characters. So we just put it there. Start date should not allow days prior to OSRA establishment. So I don't think that exists actually. And then email format validation for sponsor. Okay, so. There's one. And the next one was start dates. We can actually set that up as a new feature. So all start dates. Please spell proceed, not like that. Of April 1st, 2012. Okay. So I think for now that. What do you think, guys? Does that cover our bases here? So the first four things are mostly done. There is maybe one or two tasks, subtasks in some of these that need to be finished, and they need then to be reviewed and accepted. Then all of these things are enhancements. Actually, sorry, this should not be in the sprint because that's a new feature. So let's send that back to the backlog. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 are the enhancements, and this one's already there, so that's all the enhancements from phase 1. Then we have these remaining Rails tasks to finish. And I think for now, maybe we shouldn't create any new Rails tasks, but as we finish these ones, we will add more during the sprint. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it.
All right. So let's start the sprint. Well, that's how we have to do it. Unless you guys want to vote on some stories right now.
I'm terrible at voting.
Yeah, well, in fact, we cannot do it because we don't know what the client specification is for this OSRA 124. Okay, well, we'll just have to live with this scope change whenever we do it later. Okay, so the sprint is starting today on 16th February and ends in 2 weeks on March 2nd. We will have 2 client meetings during this sprint, so we will discuss, first of all, next week we'll discuss our strategy with the client and ensure that they're okay to wait for the new features. And I think that's it.
So we are all set.
We are all set insofar as deciding what goes into the sprint. Actually, I've already started working on this, so I'll just assign my name to it. Now, we can talk about who does what. So, Christopher, what is your preference?
Can you be more specific?
Would you like to? Okay, let's start with the very basics. Would you like to work on Rails on this creation of CRUD in Rails, or there are these 3 enhancements that the client has requested?
It doesn't matter to me. I think I'll probably have to get familiar with both sides of it anyway.
Okay.
So whatever your best judgment is.
Okay.
I'm more familiar with Rails. I've never actually used active admin.
Yeah. If you can help it, don't start, is our advice, I think. Okay.
Okay.
So in that case, should we add another task to our switch to Rails? Because we need something to work on. So we have partner, user, sponsor, navbar, cucumbers, so let's create another one. It's an improvement. I can't move this thing. Create Rails, routes and views for user. Okay. create Rails for, okay, so we did partner, user, sponsor,
Orphan.
orphan. Yeah, that's the big one. Okay.
Mhm.
I need to add it to how do I do that?
To add it to the sprint.
Yeah, I need to add it to the sprint. And somehow I need to also add it to the epic. There we go.
Damn, this is complicated.
Well, I'm probably not doing it the best way. In fact, I'm sure that I'm not doing it the best way. Okay, so this is where this is the next push for Rails, creating routes, controllers, and views for the orphan model. I will tomorrow flesh out all the subtasks for this, and then people will be able to assign themselves and start working. But just for reference, if you look at, for example, the identical task that we did for the sponsor model, there are 10 subtasks. So that's roughly how we will break this this big scope into individual smaller tasks. So basically, it's just creating the CRUD functionality. So all your standard views, standard routes, and standard controller actions. So Christopher, if you would like to jump in right away, basically create a subtask under this task. For example, create index, controller action, and view, and have a go at it.
Okay, so is this, it looks in the code that you're referring to the Rails app as HQ, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We're putting everything under the HQ namespace to keep it separate from the admin namespace, which is the active admin domain.
And are we developing these components in isolation? Like, that is to say, you're writing a BDD test and then backfilling the code, or are we just writing controller tests and RSpec for that?
Yeah, so far we haven't really written that much Cucumber tests at all, because this is all basic CRUD, and the decision was made ultimately not to overcomplicate our feature tests.
Okay.
So yeah, for the basic things like just your basic CRUD actions and views, yeah, stick to controller tests and view tests as necessary.
And we have route tests too.
And routes tests, yes.
Okay.
But basically, you have partner, user, and sponsor as examples to follow. So you can actually look at individual pull requests that people have submitted for these individual subtasks, and they generally have you can see what the scope of each one of these little stories is. Do you have access to our Jira board, by the way?
Well, I'm just looking at it in read-only mode right now.
Okay. Okay, if you cannot access it, then it's going to have to be Craig who gives you access. But in the meantime, you can reach out to me or to Christian, and we will add your name to a subtask so that people know that it's yours. Okay, guys. So here's our sprint. We have some cleanup to do, basically, to finish the things that we carried over from the last sprint. And we have a couple of these enhancements to take care of, and then the next big push will be on the orphan model, or rather the controllers and the views for orphan. Let's do it. Okay. I can feel the enthusiasm. All right. So keep in touch in Slack. Thank you.
I would like to ask you a question about the services.
Yeah. Okay. Are we done with the sprint planning? Everybody on board? Everything is clear?
Sure.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Shoot then, Christian.
Let me share the screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
So, quick question about this. Why are you not using the ad sponsorship save and remove these attribute readers?
Right. So the idea behind this is you want to encapsulate access to data. So you essentially, what you're doing is you're converting data into behavior. So you're hiding the sponsorship instance variable behind the accessor method. And in this case, at least at the moment, it doesn't make much of a difference. But kind of the forward-looking logic behind that is that if you ever need to modify sponsorship or sponsor or orphan, if you need to modify that object before you use it in the other methods of this particular class, then you can do that once in the reader method instead of having to do it multiple times every single time you use that instance variable directly.
If you mean if we want to change the default behavior of the getter.
Well, basically, yes. But for example, imagine that in this particular service object, if you needed the sponsorship, if you needed to append, I don't know, if you needed to set an end date to it on that instance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you need to do every time you actually use the sponsorship object. If you use the instance variable directly, then in every single method, the first thing you have to do is to add that end date. But if you use the accessor method, you do it that one time, and then everything is funneled through that accessor.
Mm-hmm.
But your point that you made in your other comment that by making that attribute reader a public method, we've suddenly exposed the instance variables.
Can you move this into private? Does it work?
Yes, you can.
Move this here?
Yeah, you can, and and I should do that. Yes.
Oh, cool. Didn't know that.
Yeah. It's just a method like any other. I mean, it's a convenience that that Ruby does it for you automatically, but they're just methods.
And it just returns the getter and setter here. So where it's placed, it will be like.
Yeah, exactly. So you can make it private as long as you're not relying on it being public.
Cool.
And in this case, we definitely want it to be private.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for explaining this to me.
Yeah, I hope. I mean, I'm learning all of this stuff actually as we talk. I'm telling you the ideas that are fairly new to me as well. So, if they make sense to you, and that means that I hopefully understood them.
Yeah, looks good. The only thing that doesn't really likes. Let me see. Where's the
rescues?
In the controller, the rescues, and also. Well, let me see the controller, sponsorship controller. No, not the tests. Tabs. Where are the controllers? No. Come on. Model. Okay, where are the controllers?
There you go.
Yeah. So you have to create the sponsorship and then you create this new object that
Yeah.
I explained there that doesn't looks good to me, but just to create a few tests. It doesn't look like it's related to the sponsorship. You're creating a new class that's different.
Well, one thing that you could do is you could pass sponsor and orphan and start date into create sponsorship, and then create the sponsorship there. But I think doing it this way this is what's called dependency injection.
Yeah.
So you pass an object to create sponsorship instead of asking create sponsorship to build an object. That's the principle that I try to follow here, at least to the best of my understanding.
How about if we just this method, we just move it in the model and delegate from it. So we have sponsorship dot create sponsorship delegates to creating this and executing this. Is this too much?
I'm not sure what would be gained by that, I guess.
Well, it's easier to read here, but no, it's more complicated in the model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then again, you start mixing concerns into, like I try to pull out essentially all of this code out of sponsorship and out of sponsor and out of orphan into its own classes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start now calling those classes from the models, then again they start kind of leaking back in, even though it's a single method.
Yeah.
So I understand. You know, I agree that the syntax got a bit more convoluted compared to what it was before, where before we were just calling a method on the sponsorship.
Yeah, it's not very intuitive like do it this way.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully the class names are fairly self-explanatory.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we tried to avoid the observers, right? This is that we started with the idea of the services, right?
Try to avoid callbacks primarily, yeah.
Yeah, the callbacks.
Yeah.
But adding by manually adding this create sponsorship and destroy sponsorship every time after we create a sponsorship, isn't that the same?
Well, it's different in the sense that sponsorship is no longer responsible for the changes to the sponsor and orphan that take place every time sponsorship changes. Now the entire functionality of sort of the entire functionality of what happens when you create a sponsorship is encapsulated within the create sponsorship object. So sponsorship doesn't have to worry about, oh, I need to make a call to sponsor and to orphan to make sure that they update themselves. It's this service object that does all that. So from that sense, from that point of view, I think it's a win.
Yeah, this is good because all the related logic is separated.
Because yeah, it's all in one
Do
place.
you know how to tie a tie?
No.
No?
It's all in one place. You can see exactly what happens on sponsorship creation, direction, or whatever it is. You can see that you don't need to follow the chain of callbacks from sponsorship to sponsor to orphan to see what exactly happens to those other associated objects. You can see that this is exactly what takes place. It's right here in this class. And like I said, I really felt good about taking that responsibility out of sponsorship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like these services. The only thing that bothers me is it's what got left in the controller.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we can think of a way to clean up the controllers or to maybe use these service objects slightly differently, then I would be all up for that.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the best that I could come up with, at least while I was working on it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll keep thinking about it.
Yeah. I don't think there's any rush to merge this in, so we can, keep exploring and maybe come up with alternative solutions.
Mm-hmm. But nice work anyway.
Yeah, cheers.
And
I
also,
was pretty proud of it myself in the end. I mean, the final pull request is pretty giant. But
yeah, and also you had to rewrite a lot of the tests.
yeah, well, the good thing about the test was that, I mean, I wrote a bunch of tests for the service object, but
Yeah.
when it came to changing model specs, it was mostly just delete, because I took all the functionality out
Oh,
of
right. Yeah,
those
yeah, yeah, yeah.
models. Yeah.
And when you for the controllers, oh, do you have tests for the
Yeah,
controllers?
there are controller specs that have been changed,
Yeah, you have
and
to change them.
because they use these service objects,
Yeah.
the controller spec is very uniform. Basically, for every single action, you have almost the exact same set of steps that follows, and the exact same set of tests
Mm-hmm.
that executes.
Cool.
All right, but
Okay.
yeah, let's keep it in mind. Maybe there's always room for improvement.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
guys. All right. So let's get the sprint underway.
Oh, should we talk quickly about reducing the number of events, meetings?
Oh yeah. Yeah. What do you think, guys? There's 4 of us now. Do we need to meet every single night?
I would like to meet him. If we have 4, every day we are working our stacks. Probably we will meet in 2 weeks, 3 times per week. The thing is, because we are 4, so basically I don't think we are gonna make a lot of improvement in one day. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking maybe, well, at least my point of view, maybe Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So there's a day between them, and also Sunday. So I don't know, Brian and maybe others can join.
Yeah.
But it's a good idea, but for me Sunday is complicated. I can do some Sundays I can, but not all of them. So, but the idea is good.
Okay. Well, Brian has talked about Saturdays specifically, and there is also that option that some people can meet on Saturdays as well.
Yeah, Saturday is not good.
Yeah. But let's say if, for example, if Gabrielle, if you come to the scrums during the week and then you come to the Saturday one, you can talk to Brian and keep him up to date.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said Sunday because we also have the client meeting, so it's anyway we have to be there.
Yeah, I think that's natural for us, but if people can't make it, then of course I understand that that's a problem for them. Christopher, what are you planning as far as your Scrum attendance? Are there some days that are better for you than others?
I can do a few days a week. I found that the schedule with website 1 was really unrealistic, and there were just so many meetings that they were sparsely attended.
Yeah.
And I really would want to avoid that situation again.
Sure.
But at the moment, how many meetings do you have at website one? Every week?
There's just so many that I don't go to them. Like nobody goes to them.
Oh, there are still daily meetings.
Yeah, just nobody shows up.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, let's
I
not do that.
can commit to, if I miss one, I can commit to, just sort of a status update in Slack or, by text or something.
Sure, yeah, that's cool. Okay, guys. Well, in that case, if it's Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, I mean that sounds reasonable to me. So let's call today extraordinary because we had the sprint planning meeting, but then our regular Scrum will have one tomorrow, and then the next one on Thursday.
Well, we can think about it until tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, people are usually fairly flexible. We can reschedule from Tuesday to Wednesday or etc. Okay, sounds good.
Good.
Great.
Okay, so take care.
Take care. Good night. Bye bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Later.
Yeah.